Welcome to Pro Sessions. The Recording Academy launched Pro Session series in collaboration with the Berklee Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship in order to support music creators during these uncertain times. These conversations are focused on presenting new insights and opportunities on how to leverage platforms and help drive sustainable revenue in the new digital economy. Today's session is Getting Back to Live. We're going to talk about private shows, outdoor concerts, alternative venues, and the different ways that people are getting back to live shows in the COVID-safe environment. Quick disclaimer, this program is intended for informational use only. Nothing should be construed or taken as an endorsement, legal, or financial advice, although we are going to talk about new ways to look at things. So I'm thrilled to welcome our first guests. Brian Vander Ark, lead singer and songwriter from multi-platinum rock band The Verve Pipe. Recognized worldwide for their #1 single, The Freshman. Whether solo or with the band, Brian continues to release new music and perform in concert. Ari Herstand, independent musician, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, prominent advocate who lobbied tirelessly recently in amending California's AB 5, exempting musicians and music professionals, and the founder of Ari's Take. And then also Todd Altschuler, an independent music venue owner from Colorado. During COVID shutdown, he realized there was really a need to launch something called Curbside Concerts, a site and service that connects musicians with fans who want to host COVID-safe concerts outdoors. Thanks, guys, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. It's nice to be here.
So, gosh, I don't know where to start. I think I'm going to start with Brian. You've been doing this for a long time, pre-COVID.
Yeah, I had to reinvent myself years and years ago. That's my claim to fame, was the reinvention before COVID. Now I have to reinvent and figure it out. So
that's awesome. Can you share your story on how you got started? Because when we spoke, I was in awe about, how you took a moment in time and turned it into a fairly lucrative gig for a while.
I did. Well, the band had enormous success with a couple million records sold. And then we made a record that cost way too much money and nobody bought it. So it was a huge failure. And then our comeback record, had a song from the movie Rockstar called Colorful on it. And we had another song on the charts. And so we were strapped in, ready for superstardom again. And then it was released a week after 9/11. So that was the first time that, I had to think, well, what am I going to do? How are we going to make this work? Because we got dropped at that point. And I sold everything and bought an RV. And then I met my wife, and then we bought a house in 2008, which was the worst time to buy a house. And so everything that I could possibly do wrong, I did wrong. And I didn't know how we were going to pay the mortgage, frankly, let alone make another album. But I had a fan email me. She wrote me and she said, "Hey, I wonder if you'd come play my birthday party." And I was like, I'm kind of a rock star. I really don't play birthday parties, And she wrote me back and she said, "I'll pay you $2,500. I'm like, what time is that party? So I drove to her house. And she had set up her living room like a concert venue. She had, 50 folding chairs for her family and friends. And she had, family photos on the walls, and there were fresh flowers in the vases, and there was no surly sound man or anything, and I played for her and her friends an hour's worth of music. And when I got done, people were yelling out, "Play James Taylor." It was just like my old Holiday Inn gigs when I was a kid. "Play James Taylor, I'll give you $1," that kind of thing. So I played a bunch of covers, and it was a blast. And I'm driving home that night, and I've got a check for $2,500 in one pocket, and I've got $500 in merchandise sales in the other pocket. And I'm driving home, and I'm like, I have 4,000 people on my mailing list. They all have birthdays. That's $10 million. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. But I had to lower my expectations. So the next morning, I sent out an email to my fan base. I said, "Look, let's cut out the middleman. Let me just come to your house and play for you and your friends. I'll consider any price, that kind of thing. I'll play for an hour, and then I'll hang out for an hour for pictures and teach your kid how to play a couple guitar chords or whatever, and really reconnect with people." And like within 24 hours, I booked 50 some shows. It was crazy, the response. And then I did probably 50 that summer. And then the next summer I booked 110 shows in just the summer hours. I figured out how to go from one show to the next. So I would do 3 or 4 a day on Saturdays and Sundays. And I ended up doing that for 14 years. It was called the Lawn Chairs and Living Rooms Concert Series. And I just retired it last year. And then COVID hit this year, and I was like, oh, well, I got to figure something else out now. Maybe I just give it a new name, I guess. But it was very, very successful for me. And it really was what you said, Lisa. You know, I had to just put my ego aside and, you know, and kind of put a hand out to the fan and say, look, you know, I could use some help here. What, you know, help me out. What can I do? I'll come into your home and play whatever you like, you know, and it worked out terrifically.
Bringing music to the fans. And so, you know, I love that story so much, and and thank you for sharing it again with us, because it really goes to show you that you were able to do exactly what you set out to do, which is play music for people. And as you said, in this case, you know, take out the middleman and have an incredible career.
It's all I wanted to do was to just play music for people. And, you know, the hardest part of that is, you know, for years I had to knock on doors and not know who was behind it because I did everything through email. You didn't know what, you know, you didn't know if it was going to be a lonely woman in a wedding dress who said there was going to be 50 people there or something. You know, you're kind of at the mercy of these folks, you know, but every one of them was unique and fun, and it built my fan base exponentially. And again, it was a very lucrative way to operate for 14 years. It's very helpful.
So what are you doing nowadays? Have you been doing some of the COVID safe concerts? By the way, Lawn Chair still works for this.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely works. You know, much better than living rooms, that's for sure. Well, right now is a concentration. I think like most artists, we're concentrated on creating music. And so there's been a lot of music creation. I spent the day in the studio with the guys today. But we're doing, we're streaming concerts, you know, as much as we can, but our concert streaming is a little bit different. We like to sit in a circle as a band instead of playing to an empty club and pretend like there's an audience there. We play to each other and just play the hits to each other. And we talk about where the song came from and, you know, and that kind of thing. And we try to make it a more interesting, you know, immersion type of experience for our fans. And so far that seems to be working pretty well. I mean, we're standing out, I think, from the rest, and we're one of the more interesting ones, if I could say that. It sounds very vain to say that, but I think that we've got a pretty interesting technique for our streaming, you know.
You know, I love that. And I think, you know, Ari and Todd have some input on this, but I think a lot of people are also looking at these hybrid models where, you know, there's an opportunity to play in front of a smaller audience and
Sure.
still live streaming, which I really love. And, you know, all of you, another thing you have in common is supporting small venues, which is really important. We'll talk a little bit about later on the Restart Act and the Save Our Sages Act, because at the end of the day, when this opens, it's going to open on so many different levels, and we need these small venues to survive. Ari, I know that when you first reached out to the Recording Academy, or really Music Cares, that was a large part of it. Can you share a little bit about venues, and then tell us what you're doing in the safe COVID space?
For sure. Yeah, and I love that story, Brian. I've played a ton of house concerts myself, and so I'm sure offline afterwards we could trade stories on that kind of stuff. The lonely woman in a wedding dress, I can relate. We won't get into that now. Anyway, yeah, so right, you know, I was sitting on my couch with some friends at home when in LA, I live in LA, when our mayor got on the TV. We were watching him that night, and everyone's like, turn on the mayor. And he announced that this was a Sunday night, that all music venues and restaurants and bars were shutting down. And we all we're all musicians in the room, looked at each other like, what are we going to do? This is awful. And then we kind of sprung into action. And I teamed up with my two good friends, Andrew Lieb, who's a manager at Red Light Management, and Ashley Mayetta. And she's an artist manager as well, and an artist herself. And we decided to launch a live streaming music festival called Uncanceled Music Festival. And we got this up and running in 10 days. We teamed up with venues all over the world. And our goal was to support not just the musicians, but also the venues, the music venues, because we knew that they were going to be hurting. And the first venue that we got to sign on was the Hotel Cafe in LA, and then Rockwood Music Hall in New York, because I'm a singer-songwriter, and we played both of those and close to those people. And then we got about 40 venues, and I believe it was over 150 musicians, 150 concerts that we put on within 10 days, raised over $100,000. And all of that went directly to the musicians, the venues, and Music Cares. So we supported, we teamed up with Music Cares because we heard about all the great work that Music Cares have been doing over the years as well. And it was great. And we worked with Stage It as our platform. And the thing is, as everybody probably realizes now, live streaming when COVID hit was not quite there in terms of a way to kind of ticket shows in a streamlined way with tipping capabilities and features. And Stage It had this, and they've been around for 10 years. They were the only platform. We researched all the platforms out there that could really do what we wanted to do. Now, fast forward months later, and there's a bunch of live streaming platforms out there offering ticketed concerts, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, last month, my team at Ari's Take put on a drive-in concert in LA. And I believe we're one of the only concerts in LA that happened in person. We put it on for an artist, Annabelle Lee. She's an independent artist here in LA. And it was a very DIY drive-in concert experience. So this is not, I know we're going to talk about kind of how you're converting drive-in movies later. We limited it to 40 cars, but there were probably 3-4 people per car in the household. And we kind of set this all up DIY on our own. And it went really well. People had such an incredible experience. We made sure it was safe. And it was something, we used the FM radio transmitters so people could just tune in and sit inside their car and listen to the show from inside the car. And, I'm looking at this time as an opportunity to innovate. And I think a lot of people are discouraged because so many of us love performing on stage, me being one of that. I live for the stage and for those moments, but I think we can also look at this time period as an opportunity, and we don't have to kind of sit and live in those moments of despair. And there are ways that we can kind of come out of this. And I'm actually excited to see what the new music business is going to look like post-COVID because of all these innovations that are happening right now, because of the limitations that we have to work with. And they say, when you're working with limitations, it actually inspires some more creativity. So those are just a couple of things that I've been working on these days.
I love that. And you're so right, Ari. And I think Brian and I talked about this as well. There are lessons that are being learned that will help creators going forward. In our first pro session, Rhett Miller from the Old 97 said, if you told me that I was going to be doing concerts from my computer sitting in my basement, I tell you were crazy. He said, but I love it now. I'm connecting with people all over the world. And we asked him, do you see yourself doing this once, touring opens up? And he said, absolutely. I could continue doing this one day a week from a tour bus if I had to, just to be able to reach people that they're not able to do on just an individual tour going from city to city. So you're absolutely right. It brings so much crazy opportunity. Mm-hmm. Todd, speaking of innovation, I know you really had to pivot as a venue owner. Can you share a little bit about what was happening when you first encountered quarantine?
Yeah, it wasn't as much pivoting as just being bored and not having live music. I love live music first and foremost. That's how I ended up getting into the music industry. I'm not an actual musician, so I'm kind of on the other side from most people. But it was probably a month and a half. We got shut down. My venue, 10 Mile Music Hall, got shut down March 12th. And that was a Thursday night. And, we haven't been open since. We've got a deck that we sometimes put a guitarist out on and do some live streams with about 10 people watching, kind of that hybrid model that you guys were talking about. But, we're shut down. It's a 600 plus person venue that can hold 10 people right now. So, but yeah,
really beautiful space you're between Vail and Breckenridge, right?
Yeah, we're right there, right off the Breckenridge exit. And it's beautiful mountains. It's awesome. Love living here. But we don't have the opportunity we don't have any bands that live around here. So if, there's venues closer to them for them to do the live streaming or anything like that. So we don't really have that opportunity, but You know, it was probably late April, early May. And my wife Maura and I decided that we should, you know, bring musicians to driveways instead, and have them come around. And our friends all saw that we were doing it and thought it was awesome. And yeah, so basically they just, they all wanted to do the same thing. And, you know, I obviously know a lot of musicians around here, but having all the emails come through me, and Brian, it's pretty funny. I don't know how you did 110 concerts. Having all the emails and scheduling and all that stuff come through me was difficult. So I was like, well, there's got to be some sort of website out there where you could just like put in your calendar and it integrates. So, and put in your price so people know when you're available, and how much you cost. And they could just click a button and order music the same way they would pizza or, you know, Grubhub or something like that. And there was nothing like that. So just called a couple friends and made something that was like that. And now there's, you know, we were going to do it locally, but musicians from kind of around the country ended up being on the platform. And, you know, it's free to sign up for musicians, and, you know, they get 90% of the revenue, and they set whatever they want for their, you know, rate, and they could do an hour concert or a 2-hour concert. Sky's the limit. And I think it's just made it really easy for the musicians, and for me, who wants to just push a button and order something to my home instead of going through emailing people back and forth and figuring all that out. And, you know, it's the customers have to check a button that says, you know, I understand that the musician will, you know, have a safe place to play in my yard or at my curb, you know, preferably from their vehicle, if that's okay. And it was mainly for just those solo musicians who play bars and, you know, breweries and stuff like that. But turns out bands wanted to be on too. And as restrictions lifted a little bit and people kind of started hanging out, not only with people in their household, we've allowed that also.
That's awesome. And so you do have a requirement that they know that they have to ensure that people are 6 feet away or whatever the requirement.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's this form you fill out and you have to check all these boxes, and the musicians have to do the same. And they also understand that if they don't feel safe, and the hosts also understand this, if a musician shows up and they don't feel safe, the musician will leave and there will be no refund. So hopefully that keeps people in check.
That's incredible, because there are a lot, you know, there have been some sites and people who are slowly kind of getting back into the booking of house concerts. But I feel like many of them, you know, also went dormant during this time because it wasn't safe to go into somebody's home in particular. So we talked a little bit about, you know, tell me your thoughts, each of you, on hybrid concerts. And also, you know, there's some fairly high profile people who are running out there saying that no concerts till 2022. I'd love your own predictions and what you're seeing in the marketplace.
I don't know why that. I mean, I can't understand that. I mean, I think that's a lazy way out. That's the dinosaur thinking. And what Ari was talking about earlier is that this is a time for innovation. And those people that think that this is all going to just, you know, disappear, but in 2 years from now, we're going to go right back to the way it was, are just not correct. There's just no way. The confidence isn't going to be built up by then. We're going to have to find new ways. I mean, we're booking shows and, you know, in clubs around the country at 25% capacity, but that just means that you have to go in and you have to be entertaining for that small, intimate crowd. You know, you can't rely on the lights and the sound to do part of the entertaining. You have to get down there with the people in front of them and have them participate to get the kind of energy. What if there was 1,000 people there, you know, in front of 250 people? So these are things that artists have to do and make adjustments, get more familiar with your instrument and that kind of thing, you know, find different ways to play your songs, all those things. But I don't subscribe to that at all about everything being shut down for 2 years. There's no way that any of us, Ari agrees, he lives for the stage like I do. There's no way you could keep us down like that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I completely agree with Brian. I think, you know, the maybe the leading voices, the powerful voices in the industry that are saying that concerts are coming to 2022, that's because the entire machine may not figure out how to operate until 2022. That doesn't mean that musicians are going to stop performing. I think, it's just going to look different than it has in the past. And so I think, we're going to be seeing a lot more kind of smaller events. It's not going to be as much about the giant concerts, the arena tours, the stadiums, even the big theaters. We're going to see more people do the backyard concerts and the drive-in concerts and different kinds of experiences, and actually looking at them as experiences and not simply just a concert, not just a band on stage. And I think that's also something that musicians are learning from live streaming so much more frequently with the chat box there, is that the interaction and engagement that they're seeing in real time, that fans are getting, is so exciting to them that there's a different kind of relationship that the artist is figuring out how to build with their fan and with the audience, that I think it's going to be maintained throughout this process and afterwards. And so I think, people are innovating every day and figuring out what's working and what's not. And we're going to see a totally different concert landscape, and the machine is not going to catch up for a little while. So that's why we have to innovate on the ground.
And also that machine, what I find really interesting is to see how, how ticket prices in arenas and that machine handled ticket pricing, and the prices were so high. And I wonder how this is going to affect that 2 years from now. Are they going to have to charge more? And if they charge, I doubt it. I think they're going to charge less, because I think people are going to be more hesitant to go to those big arena shows, and the prices are going to come down. So it's got a way, I think, of always leveling out. The universe has got some sort of way of making things right when it gets too crazy.
Yeah, I'd like to expand a little on what Ari said, and the machine and all of that is, there's some companies out there who can't operate. Everyone's in a different position. There's some companies that are so big that they won't operate on this smaller level, and those are the people that are probably sitting it out till 2022 and probably have the bank account to do so. I think outdoor venues are going to come online a lot faster than indoor venues. Certain venues, it might be more profitable or you lose less money to be closed down, because you're not paying, your insurance and your liquor policy and your utilities and all that stuff to make, not a lot of money. So I think everyone's in a different position, but what Brian and Ari were both saying is, the innovation and what it's gonna turn into, and you might see some new players, or you might see some of the older players doing different things. But the people who are saying 2022 are probably saying they can only do what they do at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Brian, about the democratization of seeing music. There is still crazy demand to get out and experience live shows. And you're right, experiences. We'll talk a little bit later about, the drive-ins and the hotels. But I think that there is an opportunity to change some of those ways where, it was only a couple companies that were controlling everything, because people will have had new ways to connect with artists, and fans want to pay. They want to help people. One of the things we were trying to encourage people is, listen, use Facebook and Instagram and all of those platforms to connect with your fans, but don't give everything away. Your fans want to support artists, and we can't lose sight of that.
I think it's important. That's a really great point. And it's, fans do want to pay and support artists, but you have to let them. You have to give them a means to do so, because you can't make them jump through all these hoops, by maybe putting a PayPal button on the 7th page of your website and expecting people to find it there. But if you do actually reach out, it's kind of like Brian was talking about before, he hit up his email list and just kind of offered something to them, and they took him up on that offer. And so I think if we present offers to our fans and we say, hey, I'm doing this, they're going to jump on board, and they're going to want to kind of join in with this, because everything is so new, and they are craving that connection right now, and they're willing to pay for it.
So 3 months, 6 months down the pike, what do you all see happening next? What does the future hold for everything from what you're doing with Curbside? Ari, I'm sure you're up to something. You always are. Brian, what do you see in the next 3 to 6 months?
I'm looking forward to actually getting back out on the road with the band. I feel like we're going to be playing a lot of places at the 25% to 50% capacity. And to me, the concentration, like I said, was figuring out what that looks like from the stage perspective and how we can make the show as entertaining as possible for a smaller crowd. Also for me, it's doing a lot of the public speaking about this very thing, telling the stories about reinvention and how to refocus, and reconnect with your fans. I mean, I think that these are like Ari was saying too, these are valuable things that you can bring to the community for sure. So.
Do you see hybrid shows in your future where you're doing some at 25% and also doing some live streaming?
Absolutely. Always. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to change now. And like again, Ari was saying that some people look at this and they go, wow, this is actually really great. I'm always going to, or maybe you were saying that, Lisa, I don't know why I haven't done this before. There is no reason why you can't do this. In fact, I immediately thought to myself, I could do 3 concerts a night, 2 of them online, and then the next one, and then do a post-show concert, and do a late, I mean, the sky's really the limit. I mean, I think that's the way to go. Play as much as possible on every platform, including a live one,
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Ari, what do you think? What do you see?
Right. I mean, I agree. A lot more hybrid shows. I mean, there's no reason not to live stream high quality from whether you're doing a live in-person concert at whatever percentage, and then you can simultaneously live stream. What I've been actually teaming up with and working on is with immersive experience companies. So there's a whole immersive experience space. Traditionally, it kind of started in the theater realm. And so maybe we've been to interactive immersive theater shows. It's definitely expanded. In LA, it's actually kind of becoming a hub of immersive experiences. And so I've been talking with these companies that specialize in these experiences, and we're going to create a music experience. Now, I'm also in a funk band, and it's kind of a throwback 1970s funk band. And so we're putting on a 1970s immersive experience where you kind of feel like you're going into a club in 1973. Now, we are planning to launch this in June, obviously in a club, and that's obviously not happening. But now what we're doing is we're going to create a drive-in experience with roller skaters who are going to be going around. Right. And so it's going to have, still the band performing, but there's going to be that, like I keep hitting the experience word, because creating an enhanced experience, because people are sitting inside their cars, and so we're going to have a little radio show that's happening. So you turn the dial, and you're like listening to this radio show that's us kind of interviewing from 1973, and then you turn to the dial again, and there's the band performing, and I can listen to the band. And then you see a scene over here, these roller skaters, you turn the dial to a different station, and these roller skaters are like having a dialogue right there. So we're kind of going to be creating a hybrid theater music experience, experimenting in the drive-in space a little bit more.
If I can add to that, you should do the car hop thing and have them order food, and they bring the food on the roller skates and the whole thing.
100%. Yeah.
Such
so we'll
idea.
team up with like restaurants. They'll let us use their lots, because then we say, we're going to order from the restaurant. They'll do takeout. It's like, great, take our lot for free. We'll just like use their menu, and then you can order, and then the roller skaters bring it out. Absolutely.
Great. So fun.
Well, I love living in a small community, but sometimes that kind of stuff that can only happen in the city just sounds so awesome.
Oh, come on. You have a lot of skiers who descend into your areas in the wintertime. I'm sure there's something that
we do. And it's awesome. There's nothing better than living here, but we certainly won't have roller skaters around a drive-in.
You can do it on skis, Todd.
Yeah, that would be amazing. We already had our first snowstorm up here, believe it or not. We live at 9,000, a little over 9,000 feet, and we already had our first snowstorm here.
What do you think for the growth of Curbside?
Well, I think that Curbside, we've been approached by so many people who want to do so many cool things with the platform, and even up to where bands that are touring, when they do start touring again, can kind of do a VIP experience in their, between sound check and when they play a concert for one of the lucky one of the first band to book them in the area or something like that. And, go to their home and with however many people are there and play like kind of a little private show, before the show. And Curbside also has been approached by different agencies that want to kind of use the streamlined booking process. So, I think it'll slow down here as people need to start being inside. We do a lot of stuff in Colorado where I am, and, different areas that probably aren't as warm. And so, it'll slow down a little bit for people. We don't want musicians just saying, okay, I'll go play your living room now. I don't think that's safe, and really wouldn't want it on my platform. But, and then as a venue, we're going to we're working with a company called VenueCast that's going to be producing live shows and then streaming them to venues. And so you could, each venue, say my venue could have like 40 or 50 people in it, socially distanced. They're in there and there's a live concert that's being performed at a totally different venue somewhere. And there's, 100 venues around the country that are having the same concert, and people can feel like they're at their band's shows because they can, they've got friends, another pod 6 feet apart or whatever. So I think we're going to do that as much as we can over the winter at our venue. And I think that'll be a cool experience for, the people that could get tickets to it. We won't be able to sell many, but
your platform is national. So any state that is sunny can still.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if there's musicians in Florida and, California and Texas and all over the place. So there are some areas where they would probably still be able to, go at least into, November or December.
For those people who don't use calendars and planners as well as Brian did.
He's really good. I'm impressed.
He is really good. Yeah. Well, thanks you guys. We're actually going to move this on to talk to some other folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I love all of your entrepreneurial spirit and sharing with all of the viewers on how you've been approaching it, because gosh, we need it right now. So thanks so much, and we will see you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
See ya.
So speaking of people who think differently, I want to bring in Andrew Blank from C3 and Leigh Dodson King. Hey there. Oh, do we have Leigh yet? Leigh is from Encore Live. As you can see, we have a couple artists who have gotten super creative on their own. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what you all are doing, because as they said, the behemoths may not be able to move very quickly. But you are, I guess we'll call you medium-sized companies who've been doing some incredible things. And so that music creators can kind of look to you for what the future looks like, or at least the next year.
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Lisa. It's inspiring to hear everybody talk about the innovation in the industry right now. So we're glad to be a part of this. Thanks for including us. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the innovation, the talk of innovation, just hearing what just the excitement that's out there with what a lot of these people are doing is this has been a fun topic to hear about.
So Andrew, talk to us about what you guys are doing. I mean, I know that the bulk of your business had traditionally been casinos, but you're doing some pretty incredible things with hotels lately, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I love like you said, is like the bulk of their stuff has been casinos. And so, having listened to some of the guys earlier, talking about some of the behemoths, casinos could be considered, behemoth, and, not for necessarily fully in entertainment, but, what's been cool with working with those guys is just, they're back open, and because of that, entertainment was such a huge piece to their business that they really have been, pushing us to push the envelope on coming up with new and unique entertainment ideas for them to get this stuff going. And so, one of the big, we really started off talking with them small, like stuff where they were doing some things on the casino floor where we'd have like comedians and magicians around doing things, and that was all fine, but that kind of got tired, just a little bit, just like you see some of the virtual stuff got tired. And so we were constantly just kind of pushing forward. And so, one of the big pieces that, that came around were obviously like drive-ins and then these hotel balcony shows. I think probably heard enough people talk about the drive-in concepts, but I think one of the fun ones now are these hotel balcony shows where we are, we've gone out and identified, a number of hotels across the country that have got, balconies that overlook either, a pool area or an open, just kind of garden or whatever it is, that's just an open space that has enough balconies to overlook that where you can watch a show. And so what we've done is and it really creates an amazing environment from the standpoint of COVID, right? Because I mean, you're booking your room, you're going into your room, and you're contained there with your cohort there. So you're safe, you're socially distanced, and you've got your you could bring in out food, booze, whatever there, and enjoy a show from the balcony down on the grounds. So it's been really fun, and we're just getting started. So we really look forward to this being something that grows throughout the fall and and past COVID as well. I really think that the hotels are going to be excited to keep this kind of concept going long term.
It would make sense, right, during slower seasons, particularly in markets that don't have inclement weather and who aren't in Colorado like Todd.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that with Todd, right? Is like, some of them when it might not be slower, this is like one of those concepts that really could thrive in a smaller town like that, when they're just to drive traffic to the market and to the hotel if they want it.
Yeah, particularly in the summer months when people aren't there skiing. Absolutely. Yeah. Leigh, I am, drive-in concerts have been the buzz, but you guys got in early and hard and really locked some amazing opportunities up. Can you tell us what you're doing? Because when I first heard about it, in fact, I think I probably mentioned it to everyone here, and no one actually believed that people were paying that much money for something that was not quite live.
Absolutely. No. So, I mean, when things hit back in March, everything was very up in the air. How long is this going to last? You're busy rescheduling your events. A lot of questions in the air. But by about May, we realized that unfortunately, this was going to go on a lot longer than any of us hoped. And we needed to figure out a way to, really stay alive and keep going. And so we got together as a team and ultimately decided to reach out to the drive-ins across the country. And it was a very grassroots effort in every way, shape, and form. We were cold calling the 300 or so drive-ins across North America, making introductions, explaining, who we were out of Fort Worth, Texas, and that we wanted to bring them some exclusive content to start with the summer, but we'll talk about later, hopefully even into 2021 and beyond. But we reached out to them. We put a few of our coworkers on planes, and they were going into small towns all across America. And if they couldn't find somebody on property, they were going to the local gas station saying, who owns this drive-in down the street and how do I get a hold of them? So it was a huge effort, by the team right out of the gate, because that was back in May. And our first show was in June with Garth Brooks's the concert we kicked off with. And so it's been a whirlwind ever since. We've done one a month since the Garth show, and we're excited for the fall, and really will hit things hard again come spring. But we signed exclusive agreements with nearly all of our theaters. Like I said, there's about 300 or so in the US and Canada. And so we are their exclusive provider for live stream and pre-recorded content. So everything's been pre-recorded up to this point, but we're on the verge of something special that could even more so elevate this experience at the drive-ins.
So let's talk about, launching with a small little act like Garth Brooks. I'm sure was enticing to a lot of these drive-in theaters. But what about, are some of these artists bringing in opening acts? Because, clearly if Garth didn't do a show this year, it wouldn't be fun, but you know, it wouldn't hit as hard as some of the smaller acts. So are they bringing in opening acts? And what about opportunities for some of the local artists in all of these markets?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So right now our shows are about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and we include a pre-show roll that's about 15 to 20 minutes of pre-recorded content as well, and it includes an opening act. And the way we've been going about that up to this point is labels that have, you know, artists that they want to continue to promote and push out there, whether they're up and coming or they just want to, you know, really promote them right now. Maybe they have a new CD release or something like that. They are basically providing us the opening act, and we are incorporating that and distributing the content out to all of our theaters. And so the opening act and the headlining act is all completely exclusive content, never before seen, which makes it really special and, you know, hopefully worth the ticket price, like you mentioned earlier. But when you talk about the local theaters and really getting musicians involved all across the country, obviously we are thrilled to have the opportunity to keep things alive right now in the music industry and to play a role in supporting, you know, small businesses, musicians, you name it. And one of the things that, one of the ways that I would encourage local musicians all across the country to get involved is by reaching out to their local drive-ins. Like I said, there's about 300 in the US. And if you actually go to our website, which is, what is it? EncoreNights.com. If you go to the website, it has a map and shows you all the different theaters that we're in contact with. And so you could find your local drive-in, and a lot of them are hosting live opening acts before our content kicks in, because I'll be honest with you, we have about 2 hours of content, but a lot of these people get to the gate early. It's kind of like a tailgating hybrid, especially with, you know, great weather. And so they're enjoying socially distanced entertainment, but they want to still be with their family. And so they get out there and they enjoy it for well, you know, over an hour before the concert. And so these local theaters are absolutely looking for ways to entertain the customer before our content kicks in. And so that's something where a musician could go directly to their theater and say, hey, what do you have coming up? Can I, you know, play before the show? And that's a way to still, you know, book a gig, especially at the drive-ins.
You know, I think it feeds to the point of what Ari and Brian were saying about experiences, because it isn't live. And I know a few people who went to the Metallica show recently that you all put on, and it really was about that. It was about the tailgate experience. It was about getting out of the house during COVID and being with a group of people who are safe for them, and not dissimilar to the hotel shows. You know, being able to get out and be in a new environment and have an experience for an evening, and I think is really a part of it. Although, you know, I think concerts in general, that's why people do pay so much for them, is to have that experience. What do you all think about the comments that some people have made about live concerts not coming back till 2022? Tell me your thoughts. I mean, I know you're already doing it, but I'd love your thoughts on what you envision.
Yeah, I mean, from my end, we are very confident that, you know, we're going to see, you know, live shows back, you know, next year, right? I mean, we're pushing forward. We're already seeing, you know, part of my job. I mean, my you know, official title is actually being a promoter too. So, you know, we're taking holds, we're confirming shows, we're doing things into 2021 already. So yeah, the idea that it's going to be 2022, I think, is very pessimistic and not aligned with, you know, our thinking.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that, with what Andrew said, as well as, you know, some of Ari and Brian and Todd's comments. They were spot on in the sense that, yes, it may not be exactly what we think of when we think of a stadium show. You know, there needs to be innovation. And it sounds like so many people are, you know, figuring out what the new formula is to deliver live music or exclusive content. There are many ways to do it, as, you know, we're all working really hard right now to deliver new musical experiences. I mean, I think that's the best way to put it, is we're pioneering a new musical experience, and we're still bringing exclusive content. It's just in a different format. So I do think that it shifts a little bit. You know, I don't think that you're going to be packing in stadiums necessarily, but, and I also think that things are so up in the air right now. It's so hard for anybody really to tell, without a crystal ball. But I'm excited because I think that the innovation in this industry and the passion from the musicians, and then the folks like us that are trying to deliver the content to the fans, the passion is there. And so I think absolutely we'll continue to find ways to deliver music to fans all across the country and beyond. It just might look a little bit different. So.
Yeah, I agree. I could not agree more, actually, with just like, there is a huge pent up demand for, coming back to the live shows. We're seeing it. I think with what everybody's been talking about, today, you're seeing it with the excitement that's behind all this, and how the innovations, and then how people are getting to back to when we get to being able to fill stadiums again, because I do think that's going to happen, right? It's not going to happen right out of the gates of when shows are allowed to go on again, but I do think we are going to see that. But how we weave in a lot of the these new innovations and things like that to what was the old structure to the new is going to be really exciting. I think the virtual piece, like everybody's spoken to, is here to stay. And I think you're all of a sudden seeing the ability for a 500 person club to turn into a 15,000 person club with a virtual piece to it. I think that's amazing to me, and it's just, it's been there, but now I think it's going to be prominent.
Yeah. And I love, Andrew, what you guys have been doing with also in not necessarily hybrid, but kind of getting into the virtual piece, as well as taking a look at what a live experience will look like. And I applaud both C3 and Encore Live for coming up with what you have. I think it not only shows innovation, but it really is helping the music community at large, because I think if we all kind of closed up shop because the insurance is too high or the overhead's too high for too long, we would greatly affect so many, not just the music creators, but everyone in the live industry. And thank you, Leigh, for what your company has been looking at doing with Music Cares as well. Much appreciated to both of you for all you do. Any predictions going forward? What do you, or things that might be new that we should look out for?
On our end, I think we're just really excited. Some of our theaters are going to, shut down a little bit over the winter because of the cold weather. But we're excited for some holiday specials, and then also the spring. I think everybody here at Encore Live is excited to take a little tiny step back and just look at the bigger picture and try to come out with, a strong plan, and almost a tour of some sort in the spring, rather than, laying the tracks as we go, which has been the nature of 2020. So we're excited to be able to come back out with new content and get people excited into 2020.
But you only lose about what, 50% of your drive-in theaters actually close through the rest of the year or for the winter?
Right. So yes, about 50%. The Northeast and the Midwest will shut down a little bit, but our theaters are very excited about potential holiday content with musicians. So that's something we're working on right now, and I think can be really, really special. And we'll still, have hopefully about 150 even in December. And then, yes, we'll pick back up in the spring. And we actually have, right now, most of our theaters are traditional drive-ins, a lot of rural towns and some urban, but we also have some folks now that are very interested in joining kind of our pop-up drive-in group, where whether it's a mall parking lot, or anything where they can put the infrastructure and they can safely conduct these drive-in concerts. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're, well beyond the 300 mark when we come back out in the spring, which is really exciting to continue to deliver to all the towns across the country.
I love the pop-up drive-in piece, and you also use FM band to provide audio for this, right?
That you said FM?
Yes.
Correct. Yep. We're using FM transmitters.
Awesome. Andrew, what are you seeing in the future?
It's so funny. So from our end right now, it really is starting to figure out ways to start activating venues again, right? And so one of the things that we're focusing on now is is the same kind of thing, is like these kind of pop-up concepts, right? So we are trying to, we can't have shows, but we're trying to get, people working and in the venues again by doing some of these kind of, whether it's going to be some, safe, haunted house kind of walkthrough elements, is it going to be some holiday themed pieces, some gallery kind of, very, kind of unique, spin-offs that, you wouldn't normally traditionally think as your club and theater would be, but that's what we're focusing on doing, going into the fall and into new year. So excited about that.
Well, I love this. And for those of you who want to, learn more, not only how you can support artists, a lot of creators are our audience here, but for those of you who really want to make sure that small venues in particular stay out there, there are the Restart Act and the Save Our Stages Act. You can find out more at Grammy.com/advocacy. It's really important that we ensure that all size venues stay healthy to support the business as a whole, because there are so many up and coming artists who started in venues like Todd's. So thank you, both of you, for joining us today so much. I'm going to bring Nicole from Berkeley in to chat a bit, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lisa, for having us.
Appreciate it.
Have a great one. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Lisa.
I think you heard innovation and entrepreneurship more than any other.
This topic in particular, and I have to say on top of that, like what I really appreciated, and Ari and some of the others, Brian was talking about this too, was the connection and the trust and sort of going directly from artist to fan. I mean, I think that concept of like, we can build this ourselves, and we don't necessarily need to depend on institutions. And I think with that, like, you get that, like, that trust and that connection so much more. And it's going to be really important as we all sort of come back into society. It's going to be really important having that trust, and then finding new ways. I mean, I feel like that's what the live music experience really is about ultimately, is that magic of like 1 + 1 equaling so much more than 2, because then you bump into somebody that you saw at another show, or you meet somebody new, or you both just have that experience of like this amazing solo that just the people in the room are there for. So I think that seeing that people are being so thoughtful about how to recreate those experiences, whether it's the people on roller skates or whatever, you need a little bit of that magic. So this one in particular was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I thought so too. And the other piece of it is when you hear sweeping statements like, concerts won't be back until 2022, particularly when it's from really credible entities, it is disappointing, because you wonder what to believe. And so I love seeing and hearing all of the incredible work that our guests today have been sharing with us, and how focused on actually getting out there and doing it rather than just thinking about what the future holds. They're taking action, and they are innovating, and
they're building it themselves. People aren't waiting around. Well, yeah, certainly that's what we do. So yeah, the Berkeley Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship at Berkeley College, we have online courses. We have a minor in creative entrepreneurship. We do a ton of events and experiences. We're building our own music licensing platform for students. So we are all about going direct, artist to fan or creator to consumer, and building it ourselves. And that's how you figure out, you build something, you put it out there, and then you see what the response is. And that's what Brian talked about, like with the going and doing the birthday party, you try it out and then you're like, oh, actually this is kind of awesome. Let's do this. So, I mean, that's, artists, they put something out to their audience, they see the reaction, and then they build from there. So that's sort of a core tenet of the Institute, and certainly of this series as well. And we have one more great session, which is so incredibly important, on royalties, neighboring rights, how to understand what those are, how to find them, how to make sure that you're getting all of your royalties. So incredibly important.
And it's great, especially now when people have time, because it is something that you have to invest some time in and learn a bit more about. So we're excited to work with you to get that last pro session up. We're for this session. And thank you again for your incredible partnership. For any additional pro sessions, check out grammy.com/pro sessions, and or check out YouTube. We look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you. Take care. Good night.
Take care.